My parents ruined my life. They secretly sabotaged my relationship, broke my fiance's heart, and left me alone for 14 years, thinking I'd never be able to love again. I lost everything, but the truth I uncovered was just the beginning. I've been thinking a lot lately, and it's brought me back to a moment that changed everything. It's a long story, but it's one I need to get off my chest. I need to tell someone who isn't involved, someone who can offer some perspective. It was back in 2010. I was 22 and my fiancée Clara was 20. We had been dating for 2 years and things were perfect. We were deeply in love and our engagement felt like the natural next step. We had plans to get married in the summer, maybe June or July, and we were just beginning to imagine a life together. Around that time, Clara had a family emergency that meant she couldn't go back to her hometown of Briarwood. My parents, who lived in a small suburb just outside of the city, offered her a place to stay. It made sense. We were engaged and I was still living at home, so she moved into my sister's old room. At first, everything was fine, but then, a few weeks later, something shifted. Clara started getting angry at me, not just annoyed, but furious. She'd yell and even get physical, which was completely out of character for her. I'd ask her what was wrong, but she'd just storm out of the house, disappearing for days at a time. Then she'd come back, and the cycle would repeat. It was a bizarre, confusing time. I honestly thought she was losing her mind. I spent the next year trying to understand what happened to us, what happened to her. My perfect relationship had become a minefield of unpredictable outbursts. I didn't know yet that this inexplicable change was actually the beginning of my greatest tragedy. In the spring of 2011, things were still terrible. The constant anger, the crying, the hostility, it was too much. I felt like I was living with a stranger. I tried to talk to her, to reason with her, to figure out what had changed. I suggested therapy, thinking she was dealing with a mental health issue. That made her even angrier, and it was the final straw for me. I couldn't live like that anymore. So, I ended the engagement. We went our separate ways, and for the next 14 years, I never saw or heard from her again. I spent years trying to move on, to find love again, but nothing ever stuck. I'd have a few casual relationships here and there, but they never went anywhere. I couldn't commit, couldn't open my heart up again. This past year, I was back at my parents' house for a visit. My mom, Sarah, was acting strange, nervous, jittery. She asked me to sit down, and she told me she had a confession. She said she and my dad had told Clara that I was cheating on her. My mom said they didn't think I was ready for a commitment like that, and they felt it was unfair that I was so happy when my older brother Leo was still struggling to find someone. When she said it, it hit me like a train. All the pieces of the puzzle slammed together, and the picture that formed was ugly. My parents had sabotaged my relationship, and they had kept the secret for 14 years. My own parents. I felt sick to my stomach. It was like I was living a nightmare. For 14 years, I had been lost, confused, and alone, and it was all because of them. But what they told me later was even more offensive, and it pushed me to take decisive action. Now I'm left with all these questions and no answers. What was I supposed to do now? Do I confront them again? Do I cut them off? What about Clara? I have no idea where she is now or what she thinks of me. All of these years, she's probably thought I was this cheating scumbag. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, and I'm not sure how to move on. What would you do in my situation? My parents' lies cost me my relationship, but now I'm starting to see the true price I paid. It's been a few weeks since I found out the truth, and I'm still reeling from it. I've been trying to process everything, trying to figure out what my next move should be. My parents have been acting like nothing happened. They call and text asking if I want to come over for dinner, and my mom even asked me to help her with some yard work. It's like they don't understand the magnitude of what they did. I decided to confront my mom again, this time with a little more clarity and a little more anger. I went over to their house in my old neighborhood, and I sat her down in the living room. I didn't want my dad to be a part of this yet. I needed to hear the truth from her again, without any interruptions. I need to talk to you about what you told me a few weeks ago, I said, my voice shaking a little. I still can't wrap my head around it. Why? Why would you do that?
Honey, We thought we were doing what was best for you. You were so young. We didn't want you to rush into anything.
You didn't want me to rush into anything? I asked, my voice getting louder. You ruined my relationship. You made me lose the woman I was going to marry. And for what? So I could be single for 14 years? Is that what was best for me?
Don't talk to your mother like that. We did it because we love you. And we thought it was a little unfair that you were so happy when your brother was struggling.
The last part hit me the hardest. The part about my brother, Leo, my own brother. I never would have expected him to be involved in this, and my mom was quick to say he wasn't.
Leo had nothing to do with this. He didn't know what we did. We thought it was for the best. We didn't know you would be so sad for so long. We're sorry.
Her apology felt empty. It felt like a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. They didn't just break up a relationship, they shattered my trust in them and in myself. I've spent all these years thinking there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough, that I was destined to be alone, all because of a lie. Now I'm left with more questions. How do I even begin to move on from this? How do I look at my parents and see them as anything other than the people who ruined my life? I found a shocking confession from my mom that confirms the real reason she lied. After that conversation with my mom, I knew I couldn't just let it go. Her apology felt hollow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just some misguided attempt to protect me. It was something more insidious, something darker. I decided to go back to my parents' house. I knew they wouldn't be home. My dad, Eric, had his weekly poker game with his friends, and my mom was volunteering at the local animal shelter. I told them I was going out of town for the weekend, so I knew I had a few hours to myself. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I just wanted to see if I could find something that would give me a little more insight into their twisted logic. I started in my mom's office. She had a small desk in a corner of the house, and I remembered her being very protective of her desk drawers. I carefully picked the lock and started looking through her things. I found some old bills, some family photos, and then I saw a small, leather-bound journal hidden under a stack of papers. I opened it and started reading. It was a diary my mom had been keeping for years, and as I flipped through the pages, I started to see a pattern. She was obsessed with my brother, Leo. She wrote about how he was the perfect son, how she wanted him to have the best of everything. She wrote about how much she hated Clara. She thought Clara was too wild and not good enough for me. And then I found it, the entry from 2010. It read, "I spoke with Clara today. I told her that our son Chris was having an affair with an old college girlfriend. I said I was so disappointed in him and that I didn't want to see her get hurt. It's a lie, of course, but it's what's best for him. He's not ready to be a husband and he's not ready to be a father. I need him to focus on his career, not on that girl. And besides, it's not fair to Leo that Chris is so happy. It's just not right." I stood there, frozen, the journal in my hands. It wasn't about protecting me. It wasn't about my brother's feelings. It was all about control. My mom wanted to control my life, my future, and she didn't care who she hurt in the process. Clara, me, even my brother Leo. We were all just pawns in her game. I took a picture of the page with my phone, put the journal back where I found it, and left. I felt a cold sense of clarity. The fog had lifted, and I could finally see the true face of my family. What should my next step be? Should I use this to confront my parents, or should I just walk away for good? I knew I had to confront them. The journal entry was the proof I needed, the smoking gun that would expose their lies once and for all. I couldn't let them get away with this, not after what they did to me and Clara. I decided to wait until my dad, Eric, was home, and I invited my brother Leo over as well. I wanted him to hear the truth, to know what our parents were truly capable of. When they were all sitting in the living room, I sat across from them, my phone in my hand. I started with my mom, Sarah. "I know the real reason you did what you did," I said, my voice steady. "I know it wasn't about me not being ready, and it wasn't about Leo being unhappy. It was about you. It was about you wanting to control my life." My mom started to protest, to deny everything, but I didn't let her. I know because I read your journal, I said, and I showed her the picture of the entry on my phone. She went white. She looked at my dad, who was just staring at me, his face a mask of shock and anger.
How could you go through my private things? That's a violation of my privacy. It's not true. I never wrote that.
Don't lie to me again, I shouted, the years of anger and resentment boiling over. You wrote it. You wrote that you lied to Clara because you didn't want me to get married. You wrote that you thought she was too wild and not good enough for me. You wrote that you didn't care about what happened to me, just that I did what you wanted. My dad, Eric, finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it was filled with a cold fury.
You're going to believe a stupid diary entry over your own mother? You're being ungrateful, son. We only did what was best for you.
I turned to my brother, Leo. Did you know about this, Leo? Did you know they lied about me to Clara because they thought it was unfair that I was happy? Leo just shook his head, his face a mixture of confusion and disgust. This is all a lie, my mom said again, her voice cracking. We were just trying to help you. Help me? I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. You didn't help me. You destroyed my life. You destroyed my relationship. You took away my happiness, and for what? Because you didn't think I was ready? Because you were jealous of my happiness? I couldn't stay there any longer. I stood up and walked to the door, but before I left, I looked at my mom one last time. I was ready for bad news, but this was worse than I could have ever imagined. I just remembered something you said to me a few months ago, I said, my voice quiet but firm. You asked me when I was going to have kids. You said you were getting too old to be a grandmother. You told me you wanted a family, you wanted a future. Well, you took that future away from me, and you took away my chance to have a family. So don't ever ask me that again. And with that, I left. The house, my parents, and all the lies they had built their lives on. I knew that I couldn't be a part of their lives anymore. They were no longer my family. It's been a year since I walked out of my parents' house for the last time. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it was also the most liberating. For a while, I was completely alone. I had no one to turn to, no one to talk to. I had lost my parents, and I still had no idea where Clara was. The grief was overwhelming, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of loneliness and regret. But then something started to shift. I started going to therapy, and I started talking about my feelings, my anger, my pain. I began to heal. I learned to forgive myself for what I thought was my failure, and I started to see the real truth. My parents' actions were not my fault. Their toxic need for control was their own burden to bear, not mine. I've had very little contact with my parents since that day. They've tried to reach out, to apologize, to pretend like everything is fine, but I haven't responded. My brother Leo has been a different story. We've talked, and he's been incredibly supportive. He's furious with our parents, and he's been trying to deal with his own feelings of betrayal and anger. We've been leaning on each other, and it's brought us closer than we've ever been. I haven't found Clara. I've tried looking for her on social media, but I haven't had any luck. I often wonder what she's doing now, if she's happy, if she's moved on. I hope that one day she finds out the truth, that she knows it wasn't my fault. I hope she finds peace, just as I have. I'm not in a relationship, I'm not dating, but for the first time in 14 years, I'm okay with that. I'm focusing on myself, on my career, and on building a life that is truly mine, free from the manipulation and control of my parents. I've learned that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that lead to the most peace, and that's all I want now, peace. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a long journey, and it's one that I'm still on, but I'm hopeful, and I'm finally truly free. If you want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment telling me what you think.